Hello, family. Happy 11/11. I'm so excited here to have Gila Nehemia. Can you tell me how to pronounce your name properly, darling? I didn't ask you that.
Gila Nehemia.
Nehemia. Beautiful. Well, I would love for this woman to introduce herself a little bit further. She's an author and she has so much to share with us today. Go ahead, darling.
Thank you so much, Anistara. I am a sacred erotic self-love mentor, spiritual heart guide, divine feminine healer. My purpose, my mission is to help women, especially those who've experienced chronic trauma, to dispel limiting beliefs, really open their heart, and live an erotically blissful life.
Wow. Ooh, it sounds juicy. And so you also authored a book called Surreal Love. Can you tell us a little bit about the book and how it evolved?
Thank you. Thank you for asking.
Sure.
I wrote about three to 4 years of poetry before I actually published this book, and it's about 100 poems, and it was a divine love experience, both a self love journey and with another, and it was about really opening my sacral chakra, going after my erotic desires and realizing there was a transformation and transcendence in doing that. That's why the subtitle is Kundalini Awakening Poetry.
I love that. And how long did it take for you to compile all these poems?
About 3 years. I started in about 2017. So 4 years. So I published it in February of 2021.
Beautiful. And is this something that you just started writing in your own journal? Like what prompted you to do this?
That's an interesting question. I was always a writer, but I never considered myself a poet. And when I had this awakening with another and with myself and with the divine, I didn't have an outlet. And the writing wasn't enough. I wasn't able to do it just in prose because of poetry. You don't have to have like full sentences, and you kind of can create any kind of order you want. I started in medium, and it was actually a way for me to just express my emotions. And my lover would also read it at the same time because I couldn't even tell him because my throat chakra was kind of locked. So it was actually our way of communicating.
That's fabulous. I love that. And so it was an interactive sport together, right?
Yes. And he's a musician, so he would make his music, I would write my poetry, and we would meet, and still words were not quite, communication is challenging when you've been through trauma, and you have a lot of fear, and you don't feel like you can trust your heart yet. And that's actually the journey I take my clients through, because that's a journey I went through.
Yes.
And it was, and I really believe, because I work now in the quantum field, and what we desire, what we truly feel in our hearts is actually right in front of us, because of our stories and our limiting beliefs that, from a variety of different reasons why that came through. Sometimes we're unable to see it. And that's really part of this poetry book as well.
Let's dive down that rabbit hole a little bit. And what are some of these limiting beliefs that you find we need to overcome?
Great question. So I've found, both with myself and my clients, disappointment, heartbreak, things won't work out for me. I can't really get what I want. I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. It comes out in a variety of different ways, even though that might not be the message we're actually thinking in our minds.
Yeah, I'm not worthy is definitely a big one for a lot of people. I certainly go through it sometimes myself, right? And really, truly, it's about coming back into the heart. Like you and I were talking before the call about, just really always coming back into the heart. And so you say clients, can you share with us a little bit of what you might, like a process that you might take them through to come back into the heart?
That's a great question. So one of the many processes, though, one thing that I use primarily is writing, and poetry is one form. So the first thing would just be to, when I listen to them, I might pick out certain feelings, and I'll just intuitively give them a prompt, just to feel like I am worthy because, and
Yes.
have them write that through. And because it's intuitive, it's only 5 minutes usually, I can pick out feelings that they may not have even said to me in the conversation, and we go further and deeper into that.
Interesting. Yeah, during my advanced theta healing course, I actually really learned how to what's called digging, right? And just digging deeper underneath that core belief, and what's under that, and what's under that, and what's under that, and then really getting to like the bottom of the roots of, okay, this is actually the root cause. This is actually the root core belief that needs to be transmuted and shifted. So what do you find is, I mean, this is challenging for anyone, right? We're all going through these very challenging, exceptional times in human history. There's so many feelings, there's so many emotions, there's so many things happening. And yet it always comes down to certain core beliefs. And one of them that I find is that I'm not worthy, right? Or I'm not worthy of love. And the human condition, part of the reason for us even being in this 3D matrix is for us to experience love, to be loved, and to learn how to love, right? It's like that to me, love is like the top priority of all the learning lessons that we go through, whether we're faced with a bunch of fear and we need to transmute it, or whether there's the feelings of unworthiness and we need to go really inside and begin to love ourselves more and more and more, and believe that we are worthy, and remind ourselves these things, whether it's writing it down and putting it on sticky notes all over your house. Right? I mean, there's lots of tools that people use through dance and music and poetry. And so what do you find are some of the things, some of the practices that brings you back into love?
That's a fantastic question, because I did this 30 days of self-affirmations on YouTube, and it was just about that. It was about stepping in, because I've also done quantum field work. And it's like, I've found, just to kind of go back, a little backtrack about what you were saying, sometimes there's an experience in our life that shifted something in our mind, like heartbreak, for example. You know, the boy I liked when I was in second grade disappointed me. And that is imprinted on the mind and the heart. And it's just like, whenever it's close, that kind of feeling again comes up. You know, sometimes there's self-sabotage. So two things. One, I've done some timeline work to help people to see it in a different light, different perspective. That, you know, God brought that event into your life, and you don't have to identify with that anymore. But going back into the self-affirmations, when we can affirm, when we can begin to believe that we can have a different reality, then and we can convince our ego mind that that is actually possible, because our soul and heart knows that, then we can shift into that, into the multidimensionality of who we are. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that when we remind ourselves that we are multidimensional beings, that all timelines merge, that if time doesn't exist, no time, no place, no one, nowhere, right? And it's just this present moment. The future is a projection into the future. The past is only a memory. And so when we're in the present moment and we actually are able to express our multidimensionality, or remember that we are of the light, we are love, We are love. Like, there's no doubt about it. We are love. And so to just keep coming back to that present moment, we are love. I just touch my heart. Like, I'll touch my heart when I hear something that moves me or touches me or inspires me in some way. And I just touch my heart. And that to me is like a practice, a great practice. I'll do a little bit of tapping sometimes. But having that visceral feeling of actually placing my hand over my heart and feeling that energetic connection biochemically and electromagnetically, it brings me back into it. So even now, like before we had our conversation, we dropped in, we did a heart lock-in technique together, and it just drops you into that heart field, right? And it just reminds you, like, come back to the heart, come back to the heart, come back. If I'm in a difficult conversation and with somebody, I just deep breath. Okay. And now what comes out of my mouth is in more alignment with coming back into the heart and love. So, yeah.
I appreciate that, because a lot of my work that I didn't say is also about the body, which is where the erotic comes in. So just like what you said about the body, like dropping into the heart, feeling the body wisdom. Sometimes we have these feelings, right? And I really connect with my with my clients and the people that I work with and myself on how do I feel at this moment? What's coming up for me? What, and even if it's a good thing, like, do you feel it in your heart? Does it feel good for you here, or is it here? So you're right, just dropping back into the heart, dropping back into the body, and utilizing that as your as your life force to propel you instead of here.
So let's dive into that eroticism piece a little bit, and just, can you share with us your journey around that and how it assisted you in your Kundalini awakening?
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you. Well, first of all, I think it's better now, though. Maybe some people who are listening today might feel the same as I did. I grew up in a kind of a conservative background from India, but I was brought up in New York, and a lot of taboos around sex, and only sex after marriage and things like that. And even though I followed some of my parents' rules, though not all, I realized there was something really special about, sexuality, something that felt just very kind of like I was brought up also with divine love. There are a lot of things about divinity and love through dance, through music. From India, there's a lot of opening of the chakras through yoga and dance and singing. So that was also in my brain, but I couldn't understand how, sex wasn't just an act of passion. Sex can be so many things. It could be a spiritual awakening. And I didn't know that, on a mental level, but my heart and soul knew that. So when I was on my journey, I had very difficult personal relationships. My marriage was very challenging, and then he passed away, and then I went on different dates and different relationships, and they were all didn't work. They were all very disappointing. I was very heartbroken for most of my life, and I didn't understand why. And so it was actually at that moment at the end of a very, challenging relationship, I just broke down, and I was like, all I want is true love, like of myself, of whomever. I don't know. This is what I want. And I found myself following this path that was kind of taboo, with a younger person, a lot of things that were kind of not, talked about. And that's what made this poetry really exciting, because I was finally writing about these very, sexual encounters, but I was connecting into the spiritual part of it as well. So kind of breaking taboos, you can do whatever you want with whomever you want, if that makes you feel good. Pleasure was actually the basis of it. And that's how I kept moving with it, because I realized when I feel good, and if it just opens me up into creativity, there's something there, and I just kept going with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And can you explain a little bit more around some of the culture that India brings in around Kundalini awakening and starting at the root chakra and the Sushumna and all of that? Some of our viewers might not understand.
Sure, I can. So I think there's actually different schools of thought. I actually
Yes,
took
there
my
is.
kids there.
Uh-huh.
We traveled together from the very tip of India to the northern part. So we sat at an ashram.
Wow.
Sometimes we were at different ashrams. And, there's sannyasis that don't necessarily agree with me in the way that I do this, this type of thing. But yeah, there are a variety of chakras. There are nadis. There's there's chakras in the back of your head. And, there's more than the 7 that most people talk
Uh-huh.
about.
Yeah.
And opening up, the way I kind of describe it to my clients, or the way I think about it in my mind, is like opening up one chakra can open up other chakras, specifically
Mm-hmm.
in yoga. When it's not just asana, it could be through the throat. There's also nada
Mm-hmm.
yoga where you're singing. But basically, if we just talk about the 7, so there's 7 chakras, and you can move from the back, right? It can come
Uh-huh.
from the back.
Mm-hmm.
And as you do the different postures,
Yes.
or even in meditation, the way you
Mm-hmm.
sit in a triangular faction, you can open up and release energy that's blocked.
Yes.
And as you release that, it can, feelings can come up, and, different experiences and ideas can be opened up as well as released. And you will find yourself, you could move into like samsara, you can move into deeper peace. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel it's only through kind of inspired action. It may not be
Mm-hmm.
the path for everybody to do it this
Mm-hmm.
way, but it could
Mm-hmm.
be a variety of different ways. And
Yes.
allowing that to happen is important, and also allowing yourself to truly connect, with the body, with the mind, holistically.
Yes.
That's kind of how I see it in a nutshell.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. So beyond our physical body, we have our subtle body, that's our aura. And as the Kundalini moves between each chakra, it actually starts spinning that. And it's a funnel from the front and the back going towards that energy center. And what I find is that when I dance, that's when I move most of the energy. And I find that if I feel like a specific block or there's like stagnation, or sometimes it feels like almost like when your foot falls asleep and there's like 100 different ants like running all over you. I'll feel that, or I'll feel something scratchy, or sometimes it comes up as pain, like physical pain in my lower back, right? Or or your tonsil or your glands get kind of swollen. And so there's a lot of ways that you can move that energy, and sometimes you can use outside assistance, right? Different crystals, different oils, different colors. So each chakra is represented by a different color, and you can light a candle. If you want to work with the heart chakra, just light a green candle, right? Or wear green in your clothing, or lay in green sheets. Like, you can surround yourself with the color of the chakra that you feel you need to work with. And so, do you have any specific practices or anything that you want to share with people around how to work with each chakra that they might feel like they need some opening?
Yeah, I do have a few. So another part that I didn't really include was nature.
Uh-huh.
So I really connect to nature, and
Okay.
I think it really helps the root chakra. It helps many of the chakras, but definitely sitting in nature and walking, barefoot in
Barefoot.
nature. Also, I used to lie down completely, like so. I don't know if anyone knows, but there's yoga nidra, where you're just
Mm-hmm.
completely lying down and you relax the entire body.
Mm-hmm.
And because all the chakras are against the ground, there's something that I don't it just shifts me in a particular way, and it could be anywhere, right? It could be
Uh-huh.
even in the moonlight,
Mm-hmm.
on the full moons, that you can open up the chakra. So that's one thing, is just being on the earth.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is is yoga, just like sitting in meditation,
Mm-hmm.
in that
Mm-hmm.
yogic pose of
Mm-hmm.
the triangle, because there's something also important about that Shakti energy when you're in a triangular position, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So, like with
Mm-hmm.
sacred geometry, dance is also something I use as well. And
Yeah.
food. I
Mm-hmm.
notice sometimes I became vegan, and I notice when I'm like working on the root chakra, there's a lot of root vegetables that I
Uh-huh.
like, or
Yeah.
sacral, maybe mango, like orange color, just like you were
Yep.
saying, the colors of the
The
food.
colors. Uh-huh.
Your body's telling you this is what you need right now to help you to ground.
Yeah.
Safety is big, I think, especially for trauma. People who've gone through trauma, safety and unconditional love are super important. And
Mm-hmm.
I use those techniques especially for myself and the people that I work with,
Mm-hmm.
um, in a variety of different techniques that I had mentioned.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. And again, there's so many different paths through this, right? There's different cultures and religions see this in various ways. And so I know that you're in Israel right now. And are you living there? What brought
So
you to Israel?
I have an interesting story.
Okay, great.
um, my late husband was Israeli.
Mhm.
And when he passed away, before he passed away, his brother and sister came, and they said, "I have 3 children," so they said, "Come with us,
Mhm.
stay near us, and stay in Israel for a while, so we can help you to raise the kids."
Uh-huh.
So I actually converted to Judaism before we got married. And so I have a variety of different, I guess, ancestries, which is why I felt
Yes.
called to do that. So yeah, it's actually very fascinating. I think there's a lot of similarities, especially with spoken word,
Mhm.
uh, in Hebrew and like Sanskrit. Just in terms of the way that you pray and things like that. It's very fascinating, and I've seen a lot of influence on both sides being here.
Mhm. Amazing. And so are the children they're immersed in a new culture as well. And how is that? I'm just curious, how they're taking to it and, are they bilingual? Like, yeah, anyhow. I'm just curious. I feel like we can girlfriend out, talk about that another time if you don't want to. Okay.
No, it's
I don't
fine. I have no problem.
divert.
No, 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 that's totally fine. We've been here for 7 years, so we've been here a long time. So
Yeah.
they are bilingual. They speak
Okay,
English and
great.
they speak Hebrew.
Yeah.
And I took them to India for like 6 months. So, they have a little
Uh-huh.
bit of everything.
Okay, great. Can you explain to me? You said there's a lot of similarities between the Hebrew and the Sanskrit. Can you tell me a little bit about that? I would love to know.
Well, there was something really interesting that happened in the ashram, because the woman who was leading that, she's a sannyasi, and she was actually from Australia. But in Om, just the Sanskrit letter of
Yeah.
Om,
Mm-hmm.
there's so much that we could talk about just in the letter Om,
Of course.
in Sanskrit, right? And
Uh-huh.
and so and also in Hebrew, like every single letter has a numerical number attached to it. Just
Uh-huh.
like numerology is like gematria,
Yes.
and the letters in and of itself, just kind of like any language, but they have like a root. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
know the 3 letters of any word of the root, you can
Mm-hmm.
connect to other letters. But
Mm-hmm.
beyond that, there's some spiritual significance just in listening, just in as in Sanskrit. You just
Mm-hmm.
listen, you don't have to understand. But
Mm-hmm.
when listening, something is transmitted in the frequency of those
Yes.
words.
Yes.
And I found that to be true both in Sanskrit and in Hebrew, because I
Uh-huh.
used to go to the synagogue, like with
Uh-huh.
my
Uh-huh.
late husband's family. And
Mm.
I didn't always understand all the words. And also when I was converting, I had to learn a lot, but I didn't understand. I would read the English, but I didn't fully understand. But there was
Uh-huh.
some frequency that was
Yes.
coming inside me that I cannot explain. Like it's just
Yeah.
shifting me,
Yeah.
and sometimes just hearing it, even if I don't understand, like in songs, there's some calming effect that happens.
Mm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's encoded, right? It's encoded in the frequency. So I would love to share a little story here. I was recently in Egypt, and when I was there, and our group went into the Great Pyramid, and we went up into the King's Chamber. it was interesting. Within a few minutes, the whole group got pushed out of the king's chamber. They don't like what they call worshipers arriving to Egypt who honor the pantheon of the gods. And so the group got pushed out of the king's chamber, and the security guard came over to me and he looked me directly in the eye and he says, you good energy. You number one. You come with me. And he like took my hands and sat me with my back against the red granite box, the sarcophagus. And as I was sitting there, he said, I make quiet for you. And he went and turned off all the air conditioners and just let me stay in there. And I pulled my phone out and I just started singing. I just started toning, and this light language came through, and it's just this frequency moving through my body, because I really do believe it's partially a sound healing chamber. And the way that it echoes, and it's just the way that the energy and the sound resonated through my body, I was like, something is shifting. Something is shifting within me energetically. Something is shifting within, like codes are just cracking open right now. And so I left, right? And when I came home, I remembered I actually had a reading with my psychic friend before I went to Egypt. And he said, you will receive codes. And when you come home, it will be embedded in your voice. So even if I'm sitting here and say, hi, my name is Anistara, they're going to hear it. And so I spoke about this with Jennifer Ashira Ra as well during our interview. And just how the frequency of the voice as you're speaking is encoded. And no matter what it is that you're saying, you're transmitting a certain frequency and a certain energy. And so I just love that.
Wow, that's incredible. And I completely agree with you. You know, like sometimes a person's voice doesn't sound good to me, or something like sound is really important. You know, in meditations, we can listen to a meditation for 21 days or more. And every time we might find a different detail. You know, a different thing is opening up our DNA, or is opening up our codes, like we don't know. But yeah, sound is so powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
So, yes, of course. Thank you. You know, when we're at these powerful portals too, it's some of the work that 1111 Unified hopes to do is that we take sacred pilgrimages to the sacred sites where we can be activated by them, where we can reactivate them from their dormant state. And who knows what's going to happen when those nodes of light open on the planet even further than they are. And being able to do that in synchronicity together on a very special day. And for us, it's 11/11. For us 11/11ers, we love the double digits, all the double digits. And it's the the unification frequency. It's a master number. It means spirituality. It means awakening. It means enlightenment. And it means spiritual awakening and enlightenment. And so what better moment to connect in a unified field around the globe at these sacred sites? And so I know we recently presented for Global Heart Dance, and you spoke of portals during your presentation. Can you share a little bit more about your knowledge in that?
Well, that's funny. As you were saying that, part of my awakening was the numbers. I kept seeing 111 or 144, even with my divine partner, like threes, all these different numbers. And actually, didn't mention my father. He was, he studied yoga, and he had, when I was young, all these books, Edgar Casey, can't even think of all of them right now. My mind is going back, but he had Jay Krishnamurti, a lot of these people, who I think about. But at the time when I was young, I didn't understand. But I remember opening up a numerology book when I was 16 in my father's library. And I was just like, what is that? Wow, that's totally fascinating. So here, 30 years later, I'm suddenly so all the dots connect. And I also just wanted to share about the ley lines, so when I was in Khajuraho, which is where the sacred erotic temples are in India. So it was something I really wanted to see because it's a lot about my own work. And I met this fascinating woman there who is an environmental scientist. and she was studying ley lines and yogini temples and stuff like that. So, that was also, it was all part of the awakening. Like all of these, that was a portal. We were opening up portals together. My divine partner and I are opening up portals all the time in terms of our own hearts and the hearts of the collective. And I think I want to just share that I think that all of us have something that's super important that we're doing currently and we will be doing. And we are all opening up portals. And to understand the divinity within us. It's numbers, it's the work that we do, it's our heart opening. There are so many different types of portals that we open in our own lives.
Well, let's I want to share something with you because I think it's appropriate in this moment. So I recently went through a program. My friend Sierra really has birthed this ministry. And what she did is pussy readings. Yes,
nice.
I said the word pussy. And so just like palmistry, right? And the lines or irogenics, reading the eyes, you can have your yoni read. And there are different symbols that come out. There's shapes in the hair. There's beautiful images that come through, animals, totems, ruins, like symbols from ruins or different languages. And it's just, honestly, it's one of the most empowering things I've ever gone through. I went through a personal reading with her, and then a few months later I went through a program, and it's called the Portal Priestess program. And it really connects the fact that our yonis are our sacred portals. It's where life comes from. For those of us who are mothers, we totally get this. For women who aren't, your life that you birth is your creations, your art, your dance, your paintings, your poetry, whatever it is. And so during the program, we're invited to really spend time with our yoni and doing yoni gazing, essentially, and looking in a mirror and really being with her and just spending time with her and just saying, what would Yoni say right now? And journal a little bit, right?
Nice.
And so much that came through was like spaciousness, femininity. Don't do it the linear way. Don't do it the masculine way. We're moving away from old hierarchical, patriarchal, paradigm, and we're shifting into a more cyclic, like the way we used to live, from sundown to all the things, right? Sun up to sundown, to solstice to equinox, to solstice to equinox. And so when we're in that flow, that feminine flow of really connecting with our sacred portal, so much more gets birthed through our life. And so part of my mission when I was in Egypt earlier this year was to really have the portal priestesses with me in my heart. Every time I went to a new temple, every time I went to a new space and a new sacred site. And I think we have a lot to talk about around that.
Well, yeah, I didn't talk about that yet, but that was actually a big part of my beginning of my business, was about pleasure. And, and pleasuring ourselves, really getting into our clitoris. There's a book that I was reading. I'm still reading it. There are so many erogenous zones in our body, both for men and women. And we think about certain ones, maybe the ears or behind the ears, or, like a clitoris, or, but they're actually a lot. Yes, exactly. Nipples. Right. But there are a lot. And part of it was just this whole idea of like getting, and I also talk about that creative life force energy through our sacral chakra, and how you can connect to that, how you're just exactly what you said, how you birth everything through that. And there's so much power there. And there's so much power in terms of sacred sexuality too. There's something very special about, when we're having casual sex, you're losing, I don't know, I don't want to give a yes or no, but there's something very special about being with a person and exchanging that sacred energy. And the more that you can, get into that, both through your physical body and even just like, astrally, like, not necessarily even touching anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, also Mama Gina does work around that. There's
Yes.
a lot of great people that are doing some amazing work,
Yeah.
and connecting it even into trauma. Like, there are a lot of people that want to, but
Mm-hmm.
have challenges with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's where I come in too. Like, how do we get into that intimacy?
Mm-hmm.
Um, both on a heart level, a physical level, a mental level. There's a lot of pieces to that. But thank you for bringing that
Mm-hmm.
up. Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
amazing. That sounds so
Yeah. Yeah.
cool.
It is, and I honestly I see it growing. When I went to the first Pussy Church, and it was a group experience, and we got to witness a yoni reading, and honestly, I looked at my friend. I was like, "This is gonna get big. Like, you're gonna be training women how to do this. We want to have preteens have their yonis read. Imagine the young women being able to come from a place of self-respect and dignity for themselves because they have a relationship with their sacred portal, teenage pregnancy and teenage sex, and just so many different things can be reduced. I think, like, that's what I see, when I see in my mind's eye the future. There are certain things that I can see how it will benefit humanity if young girls learned how to connect in this way. Sex education in schools is crazy. It just talks about condoms and all the things that you can buy, right? And it's just everything can be done naturally. Like, for instance, my mother-in-law, when I first started dating my partner, she told me about the apple cider vinegar douche. And I'm like, what is that? Right. And so you put a capful of organic apple cider vinegar in warm water. And just after making love, you squeeze it up inside you. And the apple cider vinegar changes the pH within your yoni, and it kills all the sperm. And
Wow.
so they literally can't live. And so this has been our form of um, birth control, our whole relationship. And so I'm not saying it's a guaranteed thing. Don't quote me or come at me and say, I'm pregnant now. But it's something that Andrew and I have held sacred, and it's been a wonderful tool for us. And I say this because so much of what we've learned as girls can begin to be unprogrammed when we take alternative ideas to heart and begin to practice them. Like yoni gazing. I never in my life thought that would. And men, they can see their genitals on the outside. They can hold it in their hands. They can, and so we have to view them in a different way. And so it's just, I feel like you and I have a lot to talk about beyond
Yeah.
this.
Well, there is something I did take with, I have to
Sure.
remember her name. I can't remember her name. So it's an orgasmic manifestation class, because I actually was doing it
Mm-hmm.
since I was 8, and I didn't realize it was actually like a thing. But so yeah, there's so many things that are, and I love what you said about healing, because I believe that we can heal ourselves, anything in ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And especially with birth control, that was a big challenge for me in my own life. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a whole history and patriarchal and all these different things that are involved in that. But I think that those kinds of techniques and really connecting to the body, you're going to understand your body better. You're going to know your
Mm-hmm.
ovulation cycles. You're going to know things if you
Mm-hmm.
really, like, are more, feel
Pay
it and talk
attention.
about it. Exactly. And talk about it. Like, I talk about it with my children. I didn't
Yep.
used to do it with my mom, but I feel
Uh-huh.
like the more open we are about sexuality and things that are going on with the body with our children, I feel the better informed that they're going to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm claiming here that Mama Gina and Sierra get together and they start weaving. I hear through the grapevine that that's starting to happen because this thing's going to explode. I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I
So
love it.
what an awesome way to introduce that in this conversation. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. So I know that we want people to be able to get a hold of you, and I want to go through that. But is there any other final words that you want to share around Kundalini Awakening or self love? Any practice that you want to leave our guests with? Anything?
Yeah, I would just recommend or encourage anyone who's listening today or on the replay that
Mm-hmm.
whatever they creatively feel is coming through them to explore it. Whether it's writing, whatever it is, even if it's just desire, explore it, see where it's going, because it can lead you to the most beautiful places that you never even dreamed you'd be. And I never dreamed I'd be here in this amazing relationship with this person that's continued for years. And just my life unfolding is a gift. And especially if you've come from challenging circumstances, know that there is always, every moment is beautiful, and there is beauty still behind that you haven't yet opened yet.
Love that. Yeah, and we can transmute trauma together, sisters. Like this is the time. This is the time for the goddess to step forward, for us to be able to be honest and vulnerable and authentic, especially when it comes to our Kundalini awakening and our sexual center, our creativity, our ability to bring life into the world and to birth things. We are literally going through the birth canal to rebirth humanity. And so it's time for the women to step into their roles and their purpose and their passion, and be guided by our hearts to assist in this awakening on our planet. So
Oh,
thank you,
and so it is.
sister, for your time. Yeah, oh, so it is.
Thank you.
All
Thank you.
right. So, yeah, you mentioned something about coaching and clients, and I'm sure you have some kind of freebie or offer on your contributor page here on the website. Let us know a little
Yeah.
bit about how to get a hold of you.
Yes. Yeah. So anyone who's listening can have 30 minutes of my time for free. Normally it's $77 a strategy session. So I'm giving that as part of this 11/11 unified. Thank you for being here. And yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Amazing. I'm so excited. And tell us your book title again, so those who are interested can run out and purchase it.
Sure. It's Surreal Love, Kundalini Awakening Poetry by me, Gila Nehemia. You can find that in Amazon or really any online bookseller. It's also available in paperback, so they could get either one.
Amazing. Well, congratulations. And I would love to talk with you in the future about a collaborative book project. Yeah, I channeled the title a while ago, and it's gonna happen soon. So it's right on topic.
Fantastic. Fantastic. There is going to
Um,
be an anthology that's coming out soon. I'm doing one with 10 other authors on really moving out of the patriarchal paradigm into sovereignty, from silence to sovereignty. So that
oh,
should
I
be
love
out
that.
next year.
Oh, wonderful. That sounds delightful. I will definitely keep an eye on that. All right, sister. Thank you so much for the conversation. Thank you for beaming in from Israel. We so appreciate you.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Anistara.
Have a beautiful day, everyone.